Okay, I've been doing this series for quite some time, and hopefully I'll keep doing it for quite some time. And I was thinking that, boy, I'm going to run out of these things before I get to a million. But just this morning, I thought of one that would be pretty damn good, and I'm gonna be vain and then take the piss out of myself at the same time. I think the reason I'm probably good, I think I'm good at this educational business, is because I live the struggle. And one of the things I want to talk about with the million little things is system surfing, for instance, and the Holy Grail hunt and all the other good stuff. I think we all have to live through that and a thousand other things, a million little other things, bad behavior things, in order to become successful and not do that anymore. So we're going to get into that next week, and I think it's going to make a lot more sense then. But the reason I think that I'm good at this as far as the education is concerned is because I do make a lot of mistakes and I do get caught up in things. And sometimes I get caught up in, as that Dakota says, the intuition versus the intuition. And if all I did was wait and wait and wait and wait for the trend days, for instance, before I step in on an intraday basis, I probably would do pretty damn good. And I'm getting better at that, but I'm working on it. Also, I've actually, and I think this the trading service has helped me too. I have become really good at being patient about putting capital into harm's way. I've reached a point where I used to couldn't wait to make a trade, and now, especially on the position trades, I'm really skeptical, and I think that's important too. But anyway, backing into a lot of things here. Imagine that, me going off on a tangent. But the point I want to make with a million little things is everyone thinks they have this big epiphany and bam, hey, I'm a trader now. Okay, I'm gonna get the license plate and whatever. And the reality is it's not a huge epiphany. It's maybe some little tiny epiphanies along the way, but it's definitely a million little things. And number 276,477 is keep an eye on the time. Now, I'm a big fan of these drug movies, these cartel movies, and I'm always a little let down when they're over because they all end badly, right? Spoiler alert, they all end badly. And I question myself, like, why did I put that negative stuff in my head? But I just can't help it. I'm kind of a sucker for these kind of things. And I haven't watched. I've been wanting to watch the Sicario forever. Just never got around to doing it. I knew it was something my wife wouldn't really be into. And the other night I kind of tricked her. Hey, let's see what this Sicario thing is. I knew what it was. But anyway, Kate Macer, which played by Emily Blunt. I tell you what, I have a new respect for Emily Blunt after this. I might have to go in and watch Devil Wears Prada again tonight, after seeing her in a brand new light. But she was excellent. She played Kate Macer. Now, she was an FBI agent, and slight spoiler alert here, she was recruited by the CIA under somewhat nefarious reasons, and she thought she was going in and do a lot of good, and there was a bit of a hidden agenda happening, but she was wonderful in this role. And one of my favorite actors is Benicio del Toro, and he played Alejandro Gillick. Now, he was a CIA operative, or so we thought. Now, a little spoiler alert. I'm not giving anything away here. And Kate Macer, she's in over her head. And she's like, okay, you are this drug cartel expert. So, Alejandro, what do I need to know about the cartels? And I loved his answer. And of course, everything with me comes back to trading. And he says, you're asking me how the watch is made. For now, let's just keep an eye on the time. Now, trying to figure out how the watch is made. This year we had terrorist wars, protests, political unrest, the Fed, CPI, Snow White flopped, earnings, analyst ratings, stranded astronauts rescued. And of course, the big one was the Jessica Simpson breakup. Now, trying to figure out all that, okay, and how markets work is really an exercise in futility. And I don't want to pick on the media too much, but trying to connect the dots like that, if there were a way to connect the dots, then a lot more journalists would become traders. So don't worry how the watch works. Just keep an eye on the time. And it took me a long time to become a trend following moron. And I was thinking about that the other day. Do I need to stop referring to myself as a trend following moron? I'm like, no, because the next time I fight the market, I have to remind myself. But I think that that was probably in hindsight, you're in the middle of something negative and you're like, what good could come from this? But I've kind of spun that shit into gold, so to speak. What's the old saying? You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. I just demonetized. Anyway, I think that it was actually important, although I was very depressed when it happened because I respected the person that called me that. And he said some other really nasty things about it, which I'll divulge at some point in time about me. Anyway, he said he hopes I die penniless or I'll die penniless or something. But it was probably good for me because soon thereafter, as soon as I started fighting trends, I realized that I wasn't being a trend following moron, and I seemed to make money on balance. Not, and I got raked over the coals recently by a client because I had a few bad stock picks, and it happens, believe me. But on balance and over time, being a trend following moron works out fairly well. Now, keeping an eye on the time, and obviously this is going to become dated really fast, but pay attention to what's happening in the market. Okay, the S&P has uptrend proper order. It has had uptrend proper order for a long, long time on the weekly. Okay, but pay attention to what's happened here. Pay attention to the time. Notice that these moving averages have turned down. The exponential moving average, as I learned from Greg Morris, the day a market closes below it, it doesn't matter. It's mathematics. It doesn't matter how many days the moving average is. It could be a 200-day, a 2,000-day. That moving average will turn down, okay? The simple takes a little while longer, okay, to roll over. You forgot Katy Perry going up to space. She's up, she's down. Great. Now that'll be in my head the rest of the presentation. Thanks a lot. But you can see on a weekly basis, we're sort of okay because we're still in uptrend proper order. When we cross over, that would be one of my metrics to say, aha, this is not a good market, obviously. Now, keep in mind that you will have some lag. So if they do cross over and we don't see a longer term sell off, okay, then obviously there's lag in that, but there's other metrics to use to tell time, right? And we'll look at some of those, especially on a shorter term time frame. Katy Perry in space. Now here's again the weekly TFM system we just talked about, and we're in that 5% zone. Okay, we're more than 5%, okay, away from the 50-week closing high. So if we get back into the green, then I wouldn't say don't worry, but that's kind of my don't worry, be happy zone. As long as you're within 5% of all-time closing highs on a weekly chart, and you might want to write that down. That's a good little metric to really help you see the forest for the trees, kind of a 10,000-foot view, as opposed to staring at a tick chart, right? Watching it implode, thinking that the market's going to hell. Anyway, if we just look at a blank chart, which I often do, and draw a line sideways, the net price change, okay? Where's the market now? 57-ish, okay? 57.12. Where was the market way back in October of last year? 57.12, okay? Or 57.50-ish round number, somewhere around that level. So we've definitely lost some momentum. And if you draw your connect the dots, connect the highs, okay, you have a bit of an inverted cup and handle. So the weekly chart is still okay, but okay being the key word in that sentence. Now, daily chart, we've got 30 EMA Landry light. I know you want to party with me, but the 30 EMA has become my favorite moving average. As a general rule, never buy a market that's below the 30 EMA, unless you're doing maybe like an intraday trade or something with the VIX, like we talked about earlier, that's fine. But as a general statement, on a position trade at least, never buy a market that's below the 30. And you probably don't want to short a market above the 30 either. But you can see we've had quite a bit of Landry light, 22 days. It's been 22 days since that's over a month's trading. 20 days ish is about a month, okay? Since we touched that moving average and counting, okay? Now, take a look at the bow ties on a daily chart. Remember, the weeklies just kind of doing this right now. The dailies have already crossed over. Excuse me, they've crossed over a while earlier. I always have to think about what can I eat before the show. That's not going to come haunt me. But you can see green again, bow tie up, trade proper water. Yellow means they're meandering back and forth, which happened fairly quickly here over one day. And then red means they flipped over to the downside. So that's one of many metrics, including the Landry light, obviously, but that's a metric that can help to keep you on the right side of the market, and at the least maybe keep you from becoming too bullish, okay? And if you're above all these moving averages and they're pointing up and they're in proper order, uptrend proper order, then maybe that'll keep you from becoming too bearish. Now, one thing I like to do is just draw a line through as many bars as possible, and mathematically that's equivalent to linear regression. And by accident, this is what I call my pickup sticks chart, so to speak. And you can see most of these linear regression lines are headed lower over various periods of time, and only the shortest of the short-term ones are headed higher. That's something kind of fun to do. I know you want to part of me is put those linear regressions in, but you know me, I just kind of like to eyeball the chart and of course draw that big blue arrow. And that's probably what pissed off that gentleman, is I was drawing only straight up blue arrows in 1999. And he began to short the market